Good morning, friends. Here we are, living in the light again. We're working with A New Dispensation, Swamiji's conversation about attunement. And I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. It's been a really enlightening cycle for me. Let's start with a prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend, Beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, Beloved Master Paramhansa Yogananda, Saints of all religions, dearest friend Swami Kriyananda, help us to attune ourselves, that we may live always in your light. Help us to escape from past karma. Help us to change our attitudes, our feelings, our perception of reality, that we may shift from delusion into enlightenment. We are your children. Bless us and guide us always. Om. Peace. Amen. Okay, so we've been moving through this brochure. Let's see. So what we just read was Swami was the individual devotee grows spiritually according to how well he attunes himself to the special divine ray to which he has been drawn. And an important aspect of this attunement is service to the ray. It's very interesting the way he puts that. And this was from yesterday, but service to the ray. You sort of think, how do you serve a ray? It's a little bit of an odd idea, but he's really trying to make the point. This is not an institutional, this is not about individuals. This is that there's this ray of grace trying to come into the world. To serve the ray is to help expand that light. I've many times expressed to you all a cycle that I went through when I was very much interested in learning from Swamiji and changing my own consciousness. But I had, and it's amazing to me that I could think this way, but I had many attitudes and actions for my first 10 and 15 and 20 and 35 and 48 years that I now wonder how I could ever have thought that way, but I did. But I was happy to have Swamiji sort of working hard to build Ananda, but I kind of held it as a little bit of his hobby rather than anything that concerned me, because I was aloof from that. I served him. I was his secretary. I did letters for him. I cooked. I brought him tea. I made meals for him and for his guests. But I didn't fully understand what it was I was supposed to be doing. And I often now pray, the cause of self-realization for all. Help us to serve the cause of self-realization for all. And that's sort of my clearer articulation of what he means by the ray. Because if you're trying to do everything you can to help everyone in the world move forward towards self-realization, that is the purpose. That is why the masters were born. That's why Swami was born. And that's the definition of the master's mission, is to uplift everyone spiritually. Master's prayer, may thy love shine forever on the sanctuary of our devotion, and may we be able to awaken thy love in all hearts. That prayer, the reason we repeat it over and over again is because it can't be improved upon. May my own heart be awakened to divine love, and then with my awakened heart, may I be able to awaken the hearts of all. So what Swamiji is saying here is it isn't enough merely to attune ourselves with the thought of what I can get. We also have to be thinking, what can I give? It's an interesting, I'm sort of just rolling this around in my head. I mean, let's see what Swami says. I haven't even started getting into more of what he's saying, so maybe I should hold this for a moment. But let me just finish this thought. It's naturally we're serving ourselves, but when somebody gives you a tremendous gift, if you're a refined person, you want to pay it back. I don't mean that you want to pay it back like a vaishya, like I don't want to be indebted to you, so I'm going to make sure that I pay back everything that I take. It's just more like the spontaneous, that's what love feels like. Love feels like I want to give. And if we have all this love and gratitude to the guru, then you naturally want to help the guru. And the guru himself needs nothing. I mean, when he's in a physical body, he might need meals cooked for him or tea brought or something like that, or to be chauffeured around if he doesn't want to drive himself. But he doesn't need any of that. The way you give back to the guru, the way you give back to any friend, is you help them with what's important to them. If you have a friend who's trying to put in a garden and they've overextended themselves and can't do it, or become ill and the seeds need to be planted and you go over and do it for them, that's an act of real friendship because you're responding to something that's really important to your friend. So what is important to the guru is to bring enlightenment to all. So that's how we serve the ray, is we serve the cause of the masters behind it. And we do it because it's the right thing to do. We do it because it brings us joy. And we do it because we can never sufficiently repay the guru for the gift of his grace. So Swami has that there, and then he speaks of two examples, and I believe this is where we left off. A man, as it were, who meditated many long hours, and a woman who didn't meditate very deeply, but was always engaged in serving. He doesn't name them, but I know the examples. So the contrast between them was vivid. One was egoic and rather hard-edged, and the other was just bright and shining and soft and has become a beautiful saint. Then he goes on to say, I'm thinking of another example as well. Someone who left Ananda village, giving up the opportunity he had had for years there, actively to serve the ray, in order to live near one of the communities founded by Master, and to become absorbed, albeit passively, in those holy vibrations. A year later, I saw him again. To my deep regret, he seemed to have lost much of his former spiritual power. Now, again, I know who that example was, and this is back from 40 years ago. It was a husband and wife, and the husband they both actually, but he especially, they had major responsibilities at Ananda. He was being very creative, involved with a unique aspect of our work. He was a wonderful man. His wife was also nice, but the husband was really the one who belonged to us, to such an extent that eventually she campaigned for them to leave Ananda and become part of SRF. Swami says it delicately, the community master founded. And very reluctantly, because by that time they had a child, he went with his wife, because he didn't want to break up his household, went with his wife to Southern California. They took up residence near one of the SRF temples, because Swami refers to it as communities, but the communities were monastic. So there was no way for a householder to really be in the community. So he lived nearby and he went to church, the SRF church, and he was faithful and regular there. But the way SRF was structured then, and I think at least it's inclined this way now, I don't know if they've changed, is that all real responsibility was with the monastics. And so you could serve if you were a devotee there, but it was difficult to find the kind of meaningful, creative, all-absorbing, exciting work he'd had at Ananda, where he was really founding a community and personally responsible for a major aspect of what we were doing. I remember with my acquaintance with SRF people on one particular Sunday, as it happened when I was outside the church, actually educating people about Ananda. You might have used the word demonstrating, but I called it educating. And I spent the church service talking to the man who was in charge of the parking lot, because I had to be on public property, which was at the edge of the parking lot. This man had been part of SRF for many, many years, perhaps decades. His job was to stand outside the parking lot area and help direct cars. And it was his service to Master, and he did it every week, and he was extremely attached to it. I commended him. I commend him for his dedication to service, but my heart broke for him. I mean, he was a very capable, intelligent man, and what he did for Master was stand on the sidewalk, and if people were new, help them know, wave to the people who came every week, and if people were new, help them to know where to park and where the service was. I mean, somebody had to do it. It's not a lack of humility. It's just we have so much more to give than that. So what Swami saw in this man, and it was very sad for Swami, and this is the way he put it when he saw him a year later, when I don't even know if he was a parking lot attendant or what he was doing, but he was passive in his relationship to the spread of Master's teachings. He would go into the church, he would go to their meditations, he would be inspired, but he couldn't really pick it up in his own hands and give it to anyone the way he'd been able to do at Ananda. Swami said basically he shifted from being a man into being a boy. And the power that he was developing just wasn't there. And that's what happened. Swami says, the instrument is blessed by what flows through it. As Yogananda said also, to be in tune with the Guru, you must serve his work. So, of course, you can serve just by your very existence, which is what he's about to say. But the more of yourself you can give to that service, the more dynamically you'll grow. You have to just you can use your Vedantic understanding, but you also have to use your common sense. The best way of serving the Guru's work is to be oneself a transmitting station for the ray of light that his work represents. That's how you serve the ray. You get in tune with the ray, and you become the ray, and therefore wherever you are, you're transmitting it to others. This one can be whether or not one ever teaches, or for that matter even speaks. It is a matter of consciousness, of radiating outward, not only to other people, but to the flowers and trees, to one's work, to the very atmosphere, the blessings one has received. So Swami gives, first of all, great credence. As the Bhagavad Gita says, even a leaf offered with devotion is pleasing to the Lord, and someone sweeping the grounds or washing the dishes may be more deeply serving the Guru than someone who's standing up and lecturing to hundreds of people, because consciousness is everything. But having said that, certain actions help us to develop consciousness. And again, it's naive to not really understand that that's what's happening. That's the whole point of this brochure. So he says, for yourself too, if you want to be more in tune with the ray that is shining through this work of self-realization, seek out those who are already in tune with it. I have seen over the years that those who sought their attunement with Yogananda, but who didn't also recognize the need for personal contact with living instruments of his ray, have not received nearly as much. Now, one of the best ways to be in contact with others who are in tune with this ray is to serve alongside people who are serving this ray. And that's what Master really wanted with the spiritual communities like Ananda that are more than just monastic. The monastic, of course, is a perfectly valid lifestyle, but it's not the lifestyle that most people these days are following. So one of the ways you come in contact with people who are more in tune, and this is why you have to just use your common sense too, you get engaged in some meaningful work. Now, I understand this is not available to everyone. So Swami's making several points here. One of the points he's making is he has observed this, that this is just true. You need to be active, not passive in your relationship to being a transmitting station. But how many opportunities are there to directly serve this ray? Well, then he has to say, to compensate for that fact, you have to take it in yourself and you have to actively become a radiating station. Then he goes back to talking about to being in contact as much as you can with those who serve this ray. Because in that association, your consciousness will become stronger. And when you're, especially if you have the opportunity to work together to serve the ray, your collective attunement begins to awaken ever deepening aspects of yourself. And this is how you overcome the ego. Swami writes in his commentary on Patanjali, which was written decades later than this, the best way to overcome the ego is selfless service. It's just a single sentence, just as flat as that. The best way to overcome the ego is selfless service. So you have to serve, and you have to serve selflessly. If you're serving, for example, lecturing hundreds of people, but all it does for you is make you think how smart and how enlightened you are and how much more advanced you are than other people, then you can lecture for your whole lifetime and you'll end up spiritually worse off. You'll get a little good karma, I need to be fair. But if it just reinforces your egoic self, then you haven't really gained what you're trying to gain. But service is the way, because we sacrifice, we discipline, we think about the needs of others, we hone our skills, we sharpen and clarify our minds by the effort. And even if the doors are not opened for you by the presence of a community, pray to Master and ask him, what can I do? What can I do in your name? And what I like about Awaken Thy Love in All Hearts, or the cause of self-realization for all, everybody everybody has a next step toward the light. And it really doesn't matter where they're standing. It just matters that they take a step in the right direction. And so if we can help people take a step in the direction of more compassion, more love, more kindness, it doesn't really matter how limited their capacity to express those qualities is, as long as they're expanding from where they are. So anywhere that we live and work, we can serve. And Swami even says to the flowers and to the trees, some people are more in tune with non-human consciousness, animals or plants and flowers. And give your love to everything. Give your love, give God's love through you to everything and everyone, and then you are serving this work. He says, I remember Master even when he was alive, telling new disciples to mix more with older ones. Devotees generally who think to advance on their own are only in direct inner relationship with Master, don't know what they have in the opportunity to be with others more advanced on the path than they themselves are, those who are living instruments of the ray. Now, what Swami's working up to here, which he's about to explain, and what one of the subtexts, one of the secondary, well, not secondary, one of the primary purposes of writing this, is talking about the fact that even though self-realization is a solitary path, those who try to follow it alone don't make the same kind of progress. So service is one aspect of not following it alone, but the other is just simply the concept that I need to do this myself. And this is why Swami now comes back to, Master said, to associate with those others who are on the path, especially those who are more advanced to you than you. And these days especially, not when he wrote this, but oftentimes, of course, the saints and the masters are looking to the future. Now we have this extraordinary global system of communication, which is what I'm using right now, where you can be absolutely alone in some isolated place in the desert of Australia or in the middle of Africa or somewhere in the Himalayas, and you can still, from that point, be in contact with disciples and devotees all over the world. And through the power of these communication systems, you can listen to Master's voice, you can watch Swamiji talking, you can hear him sing, you can meet other disciples of Master, many direct disciples of Master. Time and space are both being annihilated by technology. So even if you can't be in conversation, you can be in the company of, you can be absorbing vibrations, and you can be following, you can be developing your attunement with. And by the process of email and Skype and Zoom, you can actually be in direct communication, active, real-time communication with any living disciple who has an email address, who's willing to talk to you. It's just a question of making that a priority. So Swamiji again is saying, those disciples who think, I'm just going to do this myself, and it becomes a matter of pride, I'm going to do this myself. Master spoke against that. You would think that Master would say, yes, all on your own, do it for yourself, but he didn't. He said, mix more with those who are advanced. He actually said, whether you go upward toward God or outward toward the world depends on the company you keep. And of course, you can't always control the physical company. You can control your inward company. And nowadays, you can bring all the saints and masters into your home. And so that can be the company you keep. That you're listening to Swami chant Om, or Master chanting Om, or Master chanting, or Swami singing, or having him talk to you, having one of Master talk to you, or as I was saying, one of the other disciples, who are you being with, except those that you're talking with? So Swamiji also now talks about, see, he's already built the fact that institutions are not the answer, that it's really individual consciousness. But now he wants, once he establishes that no institution can guarantee your salvation, and when I was talking about that, I was making that point. It's not an organized group. That's not institutional religion. It's when the institution says it is essential to your salvation, or is the only path to salvation, or only by these methods. That's what Swami wants to repudiate. But what he wants to get back to is we need each other. And he wants to make sure that we understand that Master said that we need to align ourselves with each other, that attunement comes from working with those who are already in tune. So then Swami introduces a new movement. The time has come to start a movement among the spiritual seekers of this age. Not all will feel inspired to follow this ray in an institutional sense, but what of it? Paramahansa Yogananda stressed the inwardness as well as the non-dogmatic nature of his mission. Not all of them will feel inspired to follow this ray in an institutional sense. What he meant by that is you don't have to be part of Ananda to be part of this ray. You don't have to be part of SRF. You don't have to actually be part of any group to be part of this ray. And now I'm contradicting myself a little bit. What I mean is, again, being a member of Ananda does not in itself make you more in tune. And that being a member of Ananda and participating in it in such a way that association lifts your consciousness will help you to be in tune with the ray. But just signing up. I remember one of the other Master's organizations basically speaking about how Master blesses its members. And I thought that was a very unfortunate statement, because no institution, not even the president, can tell you how the Guru is going to relate to you. And no one but the Guru can promise for the Guru. To say, because you've joined, because you're studying, because you're paying money, the Guru will bless you. It's just, you can't say that. You can say that the Guru has promised, you can say various things, but you can't command the Guru. That's what institutional religion is when the institution tells you what God is going to do. So Swami says, not everyone who follows this ray will want to be part of the outward expression of the group, he says. But what of it? Paramahansa Yogananda stressed the inwardness as well as the non-dogmatic nature of his mission. Master used to say, dye them in the wool of their own divine experience through Kriya Yoga. This was in answer to the dyed-in-the-wool dogmatism of so many Christian sects. Through too much dogmatism, divine truth in the West has become suffocated. This is no longer the age of institutionalism, but of individual inner commitment, of self-realization. Master once said to one of the nuns who was a receptionist at Mount Washington, where they were all living at that time, he said, teach Om and teach the Om technique and the Hong Sa technique to anyone who comes in the door. I mean, I think that was how Swami expressed it. If they walk in the door, teach them these meditation techniques. And the nun protested, but sir, don't they have to become members? Don't they have to study the lessons? And Master said, give them an experience of God, and then they will want everything else. And so that was how he approached it. It wasn't that the lessons and the being part of the spiritual family officially and outwardly isn't of benefit, but he wanted people to, he realized that if people could experience the benefit first, then they would want to do it. When I would talk to people about the requirements that we had before they could take Kriya initiation, which was to take our Raja Yoga course or study the Raja Yoga course. And also for a time, we tried to get them to become members of Ananda, but it was a hard sell. And we finally, I believe, gave it up. But we felt it was important. But the way I put it to people is, it's not that we're requiring this of you, although, in fact, we do have the capacity to offer or withhold the initiation. What we're saying to you is that if you're serious about getting in tune with this ray, you will want to do this. Why would you not want to learn more about the path you're following? And then I would go a step further in terms of membership. Why would you not want to give back to that which has given you so much? Why would you not want to support that which will then bring others the same teachings and helpful understanding that has helped you so much? It's not that we're telling you that you must. We're saying to you, consider whether or not this is an obvious thing that you would want to do. Now, of course, then that leaves it in everybody's hands. Not everyone will want to be part of this ray in the institutional sense of it. Even if Ananda is the clear and dynamic expression, and even if it's the channel through which they receive it, people have their own ideas about what they're going to do. And so our policy at Ananda has always been, almost everything, the door is wide open and anybody can come in. We do have, after you've taken Kriya initiation, then we do have appropriate satsang groups. Not every satsang group is appropriate for people who just walked in the door. But nonetheless, our way of approaching it is come and see, find out for yourself. Because then whatever understanding and commitment you have will grow from your own inner experience of it, rather than being something like an outer garment that you simply put on and wear more or less to please others. All right, my friends. God bless you.